And hello, LinkedIn. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are just finding us, you have landed in Gather for Her, our co-created conversation series with change makers and leaders who are out there in collective walking beside each other to create the reality that we want to live into. We talk to change makers to find out, how do you do it? What's going on with you? What can we learn from you? And how can we learn together? This is Powerhouse Impact Media Group, and we are so glad that you are here. I'm going to pass to my friend Charlene Sanjenko, founder of Powerhouse, to officially open us. And please leave us messages in the chat as you have questions. We will dig in and be with you. Okay, Char, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're live here on LinkedIn or you catch up with us later on our podcast. It's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Powerhouse, and I'm hosting you this morning. We are hosting you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish First Nations here on the west coast of Canada. So what a pleasure it is to welcome you officially to Gather for Her. And with that, I'd like to introduce my sister, Sharon Marshall.
Thank you, Shar, and welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be here with everyone today. My name is Sharon Marshall, and I am Métis Cree from Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, and I've been on the island for just over 20 years. And I live on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territories of the Snuneymuxw and the Snuneymuxw First Nations of the Coast Salish people. And in particular, I live in Lanceville on beautiful Vancouver Island, and I bring an Indigenous lens to this conversation. So I'm very happy to be here, and welcome. Back to you, Tina.
Thanks, Sharon. Oh, I see Lisa's with us this morning. Good morning, Lisa. So glad you're here. I am Tina Overbury. I am part of the braid here at Powerhouse. I am coming in from Nequelaquam, also known as Bowen Island. It is where I rest my head. Bowen Island is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish people, and I have the gift of living on the Coast Salish Sea. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Back to you, Shar.
So without further ado, I want to really introduce and welcome with just open arms and a big heart, a dear friend, a colleague, and an exceptional change maker. Janet Mohapi Banks is our guest today for a conversation on Gather. And I just want to tell you just a few things about Janet that you may or may not know. Janet is an international best-selling author. She's an inspirational speaker, and she's a breakthrough coach who I've personally had the pleasure of working with and look forward to working with much more. She works primarily with ambitious female entrepreneurs, creatives, leaders, and change makers, and that's why she's here today to speak with us about what is involved with overcoming any limiting beliefs to be the more that we're searching for. What is present for me this morning is the more that we're searching for is actually our natural state of being. And I'm so blessed to have you with us this morning, Janet, and just want to welcome you and turn it over to you to tell us just a little bit more about you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I really am. Yeah, the more we're searching for is an internal game, but we think of it as an external gain. But it isn't. It's all about the inside out. And we've forgotten that, I think, as we learn and we grow and we live in the societies that we do, we're not taught to listen to us. And so really the work that I do, I help people remember who they are, who they really are, what they're really here for. And so be the more that you're searching for, because when you be it, then you see it.
when I was preparing for this morning, I said to my husband, what was coming up for me, and we had a bit of a conversation around it. And I feel like it's meant to maybe kick us off this morning. It's around building unity in a broken world. And I see your work, Janet, in terms of building unity within ourselves, back to that remembering and all those pieces, so that more unity can be built relationally with others. And I just bring that up because that was literally like an hour ago this morning. So there's where I typically take my cues. And I'm curious where that takes us to maybe kick off this morning's conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, Janet.
Sorry,
Yeah.
no, go. So,
I was going to say that, one of the things that I've experienced your work. Janet has a regular spot on the leader path during our new moon power circle. And, your work is in conscious leadership. And when we're conscious, we're present. We're in what you said. We're in what we're really here for. And yet I think conscious has this, like, we have ideas about what that means. And I would love to start there in case anyone is new in the conversation of conscious leadership and relationship and relational. And I'd love to just set some context. Can you help us with that?
Yeah. So for me, when you are conscious, it is an awareness. It's you being led by your highest self. You really knowing that you are energy, knowing that this is just an experience that we're playing right now, and knowing that what we cognitively know is such a small amount of who we are. And also knowing that as a conscious leader, you cannot lead consciously without truly knowing yourself, because it's only through knowing yourself that you actually know other people. It's only through seeing the perspectives, the lens that we see through, and then understanding that there's a different lens. Oh my God, you see things differently to me? Then you can actually bring everybody together. And, like conscious leadership, conscious business, conscious communication. Conscious communication is like the absolute key to everything. If you can't communicate with people, if you can't bring people into seeing things your way, but also you seeing things their way, then you're going to be like this. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with everybody. It doesn't mean that you have to go, yeah, I completely understand your point and I completely lose everything that I've ever known to come on board with you. That's not what it's about. It's about meeting in the middle. It's about finding a win-win-win situation, a win-win-win solution to every single problem. And the win-win-win is a win for me, a win for you, and a win for the wider world, a win for the wider community. How does what we're doing right now affect my grandchildren, my grandchildren's grandchildren? How does what we're doing right now affect the community around us? How does it affect somebody that I've never even met that is going to be affected somewhere down the line, somewhere down the supply chain? It's bringing everything together. That to me is what conscious leadership is all about. And consciousness, like I say, it's just this awareness that we are all connected, and awareness that this little human form is just playing a little game and we are so much more. So I get quite animated when I speak.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So a couple things came up for me. Conscious leadership and being present. And so I automatically thought of the power of now, mm-hmm. and how important being present and living in the present moment, living in the now is. How does that fit in with this conscious leadership that you're talking about, though, like how if you're I know, but I'd like to hear how you can explain that in a manner for everybody else to understand, because to me it's like woo woo. It sounds a little bit out there.
Yeah. So for me, everything is very much in the now moment. When you are living in the now, then you're not affected by fears of the past or fears of the future or anxieties of the past. So you're literally coming from a place of like blank screen newness in every moment. And yeah, living. So I don't know, there's like two levels. I simultaneously live in two levels. I simultaneously live in the here and now and in the great big picture of the wider everything.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to ask me how I do that, that is a different question. And I think it's through meditation. Meditation is my absolute go-to. Yeah, I mean, I meditate so much. I like literally meditate probably at least 2 hours every single day now.
Wow.
And maybe, and if it's like a stressful time, all right, there's a lot going on, then I'll add in like another meditation, so it'll be like 3 hours maybe. So I'll do like morning, lunchtime, and evening time. And just meditating connects me to me, and it keeps me very present. It keeps me in the present, but it also allows that higher view.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I got a question for Shar, because I know Shar is very much a visionary, and I believe Shar meditates as well. So that's interesting. That I never thought about those two together. But you mentioned also win-win-win. That's the first time I've heard that term. I've heard win-win situation, but win-win-win, it actually really aligns. Like I just felt that in my body. Win-win-win. It actually is much more significant when you're thinking of yourself and the party that you want to win with, and then the bigger picture, which is the community or the world. I really like that way of thinking. It's very much it feels very Indigenous.
Yeah, I actually think, because I'm from, I don't know if you can tell by my accent, I'm from the UK.
Oh, really?
I'm living here in Vancouver, and I was absolutely called here. Absolutely, 100% called to Vancouver. I mean, there's when I got well, so there's like the whole history of, I got very ill. I burned out of my previous career. I spent 5 years vomiting every day, multiple times a day. And when I was healed from that, me and my child sat down and said, right, what do we want from life? What do we want from the world? And we literally made like this little tick box, and Vancouver ticked every single box. And I remember coming to the first fire circle, like last year, or I don't know, no, year before, maybe even. And there was this singing happening. And I had sung that song in my room in the UK. And I was like, oh, this is too familiar. What is happening here? And I don't know, there was something that just broke my heart apart with that. I think that, I was absolutely drawn here. I was absolutely called here. This is where I'm supposed to be. And although I am not Indigenous, there is a level of all of us that are, I think. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Janet.
I want to pick up on that, because there was something that Lisa said, who's in our Leader Path community. And she's with us right now on LinkedIn, that she said in our last Gather Wisdom Circle about the the resonance of a drum. And that while you may not be Indigenous, Turtle Island Indigenous, your drum, the resonance of your drum will meet the resonance of Turtle Island's drum, will meet the resonance of New Zealand's drum, of the Maori drum, will meet the resonance of, I loved that concept so much, especially in this conversation. I can see how we're building on last week's wisdom circle around consciousness and where we all meet. So I just wanted to shout out to you, Lisa.
Yeah,
and if you're just joining us, you have dropped into Gather for Her, which is a conscious conversation, a co-created conversation with the braid of Powerhouse and a change maker who is out there doing the change work so we can all learn together and harvest our collective wisdom. We're talking to Janet Mohapi Banks, who's a conscious leadership coach, facilitator for executive teams, entrepreneurs, and change makers. And she has a spot on our leader path during the New Moon Power Circle, which I'm so thrilled about. And if you have comments for us, please pop them in the chat. I'm noticing that my chat feature isn't linking up with LinkedIn right now. So if there's things that are resonating for you that we're saying, can you repeat them back in the chat? Because usually I do that. Love to see you capture it. And it's already happening as well. I notice that Zoe and Brenda and Lisa have shared their home or land acknowledgement. And I welcome your version of that here, and know that we're all learning how to do that. And all of your words are welcome. Love is always welcome. Acknowledgement is always welcome in the form that it shows up. So yeah, thanks, Janet. I saw you had an impulse to run with something. Was there something there in the drum or something that grabbed you?
No. I was just saying that I really love that. I completely feel that, yeah, perfect.
I would love to pick up on that and take it one step further, because when I think about conscious leadership, and again, the area that I like to play in is, how do we bring the reconnection to spirit into the boardroom? How do we bring these conversations into the critical type of decision making that needs to happen right now? And in the past, there's been a gap. There's been our business selves, and there's been our, let's go with the safe word, self-care selves, right? We keep them very separate. And I made a decision, 20 years ago that was like, screw it, that I'm walking into this as a politician, as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, as a media visionary, with all of me. I'm an Indigenous woman. I was brought up with a very religious upbringing. I have a pretty concrete set of morals and beliefs, and I'm totally open to being led. What I notice in the exploration of conscious leadership from my journey, when I look back, is the more conscious I am willing to become, the more awake I am to all of what this is. Me, conscious just means awake, fully awake. The more unknowing I experience. I'm continually walking into an unknown path. Therefore, I have to call in more faith, more growth, more expansion, and be brave enough to take that step. As soon as I feel like I've got it all figured out, another step of unknowing, right? And where I'd love to kind of go into the conversation next is, how does the type of relational change making that is needed now, how do we tie in this conversation of conscious leadership into the realization that until we get to the root of the problems that we see the symptoms to showing up in the world, we're going to go around in circles. So relational change making and conscious leadership is being brave enough to look at the root of the problems that got us here, and not be distracted only by the resulting symptoms that are all around us. How do we tie those two together? And I'm curious where that takes you, Janet, like that conversation.
Yeah. So to me, like there's in business, there is currently, this thing called soft skills, and they're basically the feminine traits. Yeah, so they are your leadership skills, they're your communication, they're your emotional intelligence, and they're considered soft skills, I believe, as a diminishment of the feminine. But what we're seeing is that female leaders are actually now saying, you know what, I am not doing it in the masculine anymore. I am going to bring the feminine to business because actually this works really well. And, there's report after report after report of like millennials and, Gen Z, when they come up, they're like a force of nature. I really, truly believe that they're going to blow the lid off everything. But millennials are saying, you know what? No, I need to feel cared for. I need to feel nurtured. I need to expand, not just professionally, not just my bank account, but I need to feel more. I need to feel fulfilled in what I'm doing. And I think that that's the disconnect that's happening in business right now, is that the old paradigm of business that put profit above everything else is dying. It's unsustainable because who's making those profits? It's all the people. It's all the people that who are making those profits for for the shareholders, for the CEOs, for all of that. I read a report that there's, on average, the CEOs of big companies earn 350 times the amount of the average workforce, like the average employee. That disparity cannot be sustainable. And, what COVID, I think, showed us is that people have come back to themselves. People were forced into isolation. People were forced to step into what is it that makes me feel whole. People realize that actually, it's not just the money, it is community. I need people around me. It's not just a want. Like years and years and years ago, Maslow, Maslow's law of hierarchy needs. Yeah, businesses used to cater for all of the basic needs. It used to be, you used to be able on a single salary to feed yourselves and your family, to house yourselves and your family. And it's gotten to the stage where the other day I read an email from a company saying, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, with inflation being so high, we can pay our people less because, they're going to be scrambling for jobs, and make sure that you get the schedule done early so they can fit in their second and third jobs around their hours here. And that, to me, that just makes me cry. That's not how business is supposed to be run. That's like the opposite of a conscious business, So I think that this is it's like a perfect storm for a change right now. It's a perfect storm. Men are realizing that the way that everything has been done before is unsustainable. Black women in particular are really, taking hold and taking that mantle and moving with it. Women on the whole are really saying, enough is enough. We are doing it this way now. There is a new way of doing it. And we're not going to be quiet about it anymore. We're not going to be shamed shamed by our emotions. Our emotions mean something. Yeah. Our conversation that we have with people, putting people at the center of an organization, looking after them as though they were family, is what it creates more profit. Because people are more productive when they're happy, when they're cared for, when they're looked after. They create more things, they create more profit. And it's such a backwards way of thinking to me that says otherwise.
I have to jump in there because the create more profit, it absolutely does create more profit. But when we don't look at profit being only the almighty dollar, it creates more profit, more wealth, like globally, like wealth is not just the dollar.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and it isn't just the
way of
dollar.
thinking.
Yeah, but it actually does create the dollar as well.
Yes.
And if you, you know, because a lot of board members are very, very fixed on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you meet them where they are. And so you show them that, yeah, you'll still maintain your dollar amounts, but you're going to be bringing all of these people up. And, you know, conscious leadership isn't about leading followers. Conscious leadership is about leading leaders. Everybody is a leader. Everybody leads themselves with honor, with integrity, with openness and vulnerability, because it's only when the leadership team can display those that they allow other people to display those too. And it's in that display of vulnerability, of openness and honesty, that we can actually get together properly and create those win-win-win situations. Win-win-win.
I love it. I want to jump into the word change here because I notice on Gather, because we're all in the same conversation, right? We're a community of change makers. So for us, this is kind of like, duh, like it's already happened, right? For us, it's already happened. And I want to point to even the reason why we're even using the word change maker right now is because it's a catalyst. And that catalyst is needed because change actually costs money. And I want to name that, which is because I'm trying to point to a whole bunch of people over here think profit happens this way. And this is how it happens and why it happens and what we need to make happen, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then there's this thing in the middle called change. To what we're talking about, which is profit. Actually, when people are taken care of, guess what? You don't lose employees. They stay. They're loyal. La, 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 la. Profit, right? And I want to just name in my own passage various times that I've made change. What I learned, and this is what I would love to like shake the establishment with, is when you don't change quickly, and I'm not saying not mindfully, which takes time, but when you don't change quickly, you bleed out your profit. Like it actually costs way more to hang on to the old la 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 la. And I would love, I'm speaking quite hot right now, but I know it's actually compassion for that space, for the leaders who are moving from a paradigm over here to a potential new paradigm. It's compassion that's going to help that bridge. And I wonder, Janet, if you can help us with that, because that's what is a great, I'm answering a question for you. Go for it.
Yeah. So sorry. What's the question again?
Sorry. Yeah. I'm pointing to, the question is, how can you help us be more compassionate in that place of deep change as change makers? So we are already the point of the ship cutting through the water, which is the catalyst. And yet force doesn't always work. And it's like the relationship of compassion and force. That's kind of where I'm going.
No, it's Power versus Force is the book that you want, David R. Hawkins. Yeah. So when you get to the understanding that we are fully connected, that you are me, I am you, it doesn't make sense to treat people badly. It really doesn't, because you know that you're actually treating an aspect of yourself badly. It doesn't make even logical sense. Yeah. But change doesn't happen without a feeling of safety. Yeah. You never move into a change situation that doesn't feel safe for you to do so. So to create that change from this paradigm to this new paradigm that that we're working towards, or working in, actually, it takes a feeling of understanding what these people in the old paradigm are losing. Yeah.
I think Sharon just fell down. Sorry, just
Whoa, your words are powerful, Janet.
Whoosh. Okay,
yeah,
so
so it takes holding these people with love, with compassion, with kindness, seeing, oh yeah, no, I can see that you feel you're losing this and losing that. You're losing your, you feel like you're losing your control. You feel like you're losing your grip. But it's, so it's talking to that fear in them to help them feel safe. Because like I say, nothing happens. If everybody is holding on and feeling so scared of losing control, of losing their position, of losing anything, change is hard. Change making is really hard. When you see people and greet people where they are, so you can guide them. You can guide them with love and compassion to where you would prefer them to be. Listening really hard to everything that they're saying and everything that they're not saying as well. Then the conversations can take place. Yeah.
So helpful, Janet. Thank you. Yeah. How you doing, Shard? Was it your computer or you that fell down? Just curious.
I want to make a big story about it, but I'm going to resist. In case you're just joining us, I'm back on screen and back online, and you are catching a conversations for and with changemakers. We're Gather for Her, where we explore the collective wisdom that's meant to come through in any given conversation, because magic lies in the experience of every interaction if you are open and awake enough to see it and feel it. What comes up for me, Janet, and apologies for that brief miss, what I'm noticing in the space right now, like what I'm noticing in my work, what I'm noticing in our work with organizational change makers and partners that are ready to put up their hand and go, you know what? We know as a business that we're ready to do better. We know that we're a great business, and we're ready to step into an organizational change-making role. I recently was prepping for a presentation, and I read an article about the importance of emotional loyalty that brands are really realizing, the importance of emotional loyalty. So when you say a brand's name, a company's name, what is the emotion attached? And I bring that up because we're just talking about the feeling of safety, the feeling of, and then I pair that up with the dance partner. So if emotional loyalty is one partner, the other dance partner that's in the space right now is the magnetism needed of a leader to attract the talent and keep the talent that their organization needs right now. The magnetism of a leader, because I work with leaders who are magnetic, and I work with leaders who want to be magnetic. And we talk about talent attraction, recruitment, retention, and it's deeply tied to brand loyalty and that feeling of safety and trust. And so I'm curious where that takes this conversation, because that is relevant, relatable, and timely right now. What do you think, Janet? Like, where does that take you? And I'd love to hear from Sharon and Tina on that as well.
Yeah, so to create magnetism, true magnetism, it takes living in your heart space. And to live in your heart space means accepting all of you. Accepting all of you, like all of your perceived flaws, all of your perceived mistakes, and just knowing, okay, yeah, no, this is me, and I love you anyway. And when you live in that space, you do become magnetic because well, like energetically, that's what you're emitting. You're emitting love, and there's nothing more more magnetic than the power of love, you know? I mean, there's loads of songs about it. So yeah, but it's love of self, really. That's what makes you magnetic. It's love of you and love of everything that that you do, everything that you allow yourself to be. So it's loving you despite the shame that you might feel, and then you can, you know, release that shame. It's loving you despite the guilt that you might feel, and then you can release that guilt. It's loving you so much that you become kind of Teflon, really. Nobody can say anything to you because you're like, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I am still being all of me. And the more all of you that you can be, the more magnetic you are. The more you try and hide, the more you're like putting up these little defense shields that things bash off of. Yeah. So they don't get to you. If you've got defenses up, things can't get to you. If you are open, then you are attracting. I mean, we're receiving all the time, but yeah, love, it's true. I truly believe self-love, self-compassion, self-kindness, self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is the real, yeah, I accept all of me. And when you can accept all of you, you can attract everything that you are a match for. Yeah.
This is perfectly timed, Janet. And I know you do this work with teams. So I want to name that in case anyone's listening. You can go to janetmohapibanks.com and find it there. But I also want to let people know that you've just dropped into a Gather for Her conversation, which is part of Powerhouse. And we have a First Steps program starting April 20th, which is all about the individual self-love of wholeness. It's not the language we use, but that's what it's about. And you said this thing earlier, right off the top. And I always say that the first 5 minutes of any conversation has all the information in it, and then you spend the next 60 unpacking it, which is awesome. And you said what they're really here for. And I was like, like old paradigm thinking goes, that's about what am I doing? And it's not that doing is bad or wrong, but it's how are you being in the doing? And I wanted to ask you, when you when you came to Vancouver, you felt called to come here and do the work that you do. I would just want to circle back to what are you really here for? And would you be willing to open that up for us so we might reflect for ourselves how you got there? And we go, oh, how do I get there for me?
Yeah, so I've come to the understanding that I am literally here. I am here for my own expansion, for my own joy, for my own bliss, for my own I was going to say like ascension, but that's very woo-woo. But yeah, it's being here, being in Vancouver has helped me and my family to become more of us. You know, I don't think it's any coincidence that my eldest child came out as being transgender before we moved like half an hour walk from Davie Village, who was like gay capital of Vancouver and possibly Canada. I don't think there's any, you know, coincidence in that. And it's through me, satisfying me, finding my fulfillment, my joy, that other people are changing. And I know that it's all an individual job that then expands out. Yeah. And I used to think I was there to help those people, help those people, help those people. And then I realized, oh, but where's me? Where's me in this equation? If I'm here for them, who's here for me? And it's when I flipped that and realized, oh no, I'm here for me. I'm here for me, and me being me automatically helps them. The more I help me, the more they are helped. That was a big mind shift for me. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
It does. I want to just tickle out, and maybe Sharon might have something here too, but I I should say, and it feels slippery to me because of old thinking of it's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. And yet I know that's not where you're going. It's at least I don't believe you are. And I think about Gail Stepanek-Kaber, who's also on the leader path with us and in community with us, and her devotion to purpose work.
Mm-hmm.
And the sentence that you opened with, what are we really here for? And so I wonder, like, as you serve you, does your purpose come forth even more?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, it always has done. Yeah. For me, it does.
I'd love to add to this because I mean, this is it. This is like the fullest and highest potential of what it means to be a human being. Like this is like, that's is what we're playing into. It's the more is playing in the fullest expression of ourselves. What is playing? And so I'll give an example. Like I'll use an analogy. When we're born, we already play in the fullest expression of ourselves. We're so curious. And then things happen and we get into things happen. And we start to believe that life is like playing one note on a piano. We've got our note and we're playing our note. Can you imagine? Just hear middle C, ding, ding. You're playing your note on the piano and you think this is life, right? Until you start to open up and realize that you have a whole keyboard of 52 keys to play with. Now, as you start to play with those 52 keys, sometimes well, sometimes not as well, the enjoyment of that playing fills the room for all to hear and experience. Sometimes people come in and they'll play with you on the keyboard, like a little duet. And other times they're just going to sit back and enjoy the evidence of what is possible when we're brave enough to play with all the keys. That's what we're talking about here, right? It's not woo-woo. It's like, and if you've experienced it in another area of your life, you totally know it's not woo-woo. So why would it be woo-woo to bring it into leadership, which is the biggest game of all and the most important game of all, right? So that's all we're talking about is getting off of middle C as much as we love it, right?
Well,
I love that analogy so much.
I do too, and it's the patriarchy that has us thinking that it's all woo-woo and that it's not good for us, right? Exactly. So here we are, and right now it's the rise of it's the time of the rise of the sacred feminine, and so yes, we are realizing that we can bring our whole selves into the boardroom, and when we do, our decisions are they're sound, they're logical, they're practical, and
inclusive. Generally, they're inclusive.
Yeah, and it's so important for us to continue to work on ourselves so that we can be the best version of ourselves in every aspect of our lives, not just the boardroom. But definitely the boardroom is where it is needed right now. We need whole leaders. Mm-hmm. And that's what this whole change making is about.
I'm curious, Janet, what are some of the biggest resistances that you notice in the work that you do with the organizations?
The biggest resistance is that change piece. So, but we've always done it this way. This is how business is done, and like I'm learning because I'm doing an MBA right now, that it's still being perpetuated. The old way of doing business is still being taught. So new people coming in are coming in with the old paradigms. And so it does take courage. It takes a brave leadership team to say, you know what, I'm going to unlearn everything that I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to learn. And I'm going to lead from the heart. I'm going to lead with kindness and compassion and with full understanding of all that I am and all that you are. And it does, it's that change. It's that change that we were talking about earlier. And it is that stepping into a new way of being, a new unknown, as Shah was saying. Stepping into the unknown is scary. So when you get to do that, you have to back yourself with absolute trust, absolute faith, absolute self-knowing that, I feel supported. I feel supported. This is going to happen. If I'm drawn there, there's a reason that I'm being led in this direction. I need to listen to that instead of shutting it down like I always have done in the past, like I was trained to do in the past.
So I'm imagining you in a room with an executive team or a whole room with all the employees, everybody. And you give your keynote speech, your conversation, and the CEO says, oh, this changes everything. And then the reaction after that. My guess is your answer would be, yes, it does.
Yeah. And it does. And that's kind of the crazy thing. Yeah. So the change doesn't cost companies, like financially, very much at all. Like when they're increasing salaries to help, help like their lowest paid, there can be a financial implication to that, but that is so quickly replaced, But generally, it's a change of mindset. It's a change. It's like you said before. It's a change of being. It's a change of It's a change of the KPIs. So the KPIs aren't just financial. They're across the board in fulfillment. How fulfilled do the staff feel? How cared for? How happy are they? These are new KPIs that can be measured. And when companies do that, when they can see, oh yeah, no, this really is working, and it doesn't happen overnight. It does take time. But at the end of the day, it's just like, wow, how did we ever do it like that before?
I will say that this is where we're being led collectively. So believe it or not, there's nothing for us to do. Like it's happening for us and all around us. What I notice is that conversations are happening. Folks are much more open than they have been in the past in my 20 years of change-making work. And I will say that it's a shift in priorities. When you choose to make being a better business, stepping into a role and taking responsibility as an organizational change maker, you just basically mean that it's a matched priority to your other business priorities. It's not an either or. Mm-hmm. It's a both. It's a both and, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I watch, my indication is when someone is ready to start to act in a way that represents a shift in their change of priorities.
You're right, Sharon. Things are changing. I too am taking an MBA program, and I've noticed it in the literature that we are researching that there's more talk about their spirituality in business, which is like, this is business. Like, really? Shocking. I know I've mentioned that to you before. Like, to me, it's just, it's very exciting to see. And so that's, if we can see that in the literature, then we know what's coming, right? Just more of that. And it's just an opening. It's wonderful. It's brilliant.
Well, we're just moving into our last 10 minutes. And so if you're just joining us, you can rewind. You've just popped into Gather for Her, which is an hour-long co-created conversation from Powerhouse with change makers and leaders who are leading their change in the world It's a co-created, and harvested conversation where the clues of where we're being led show up between us, and we dive into those. But we're in our last 10 minutes, so I just want to open up. I'm going to pass to you, Janet, actually. Is there, like, you're here, you've got us. Where would you like to go? Is there anything juicy? They're like, can we go here? Is there anything present for you like that?
Where would I like to go? I would love for everybody to become more conscious in their procurement, in everything that they're buying, like, because I think that's where it starts as well, like in the individual, like, I can't eat chocolate that I know somewhere down the line has harmed a child on the Ivory Coast. I just can't do that. The chocolate doesn't taste good in my mouth anymore, since I've learned that. And so there's like literally just a couple of chocolate bars that I can buy these days. I can't drink coffee that I know has somewhere down the line has, mistreated people, where people are suffering. So I can enjoy a nice chocolate bar and cup of coffee. Come on now. So I think that conscious purchasing, conscious consumerism is really important, because that will also drive businesses to be more conscious. So my absolute dream is to be able to go into any store and buy from a conscious business, with conscious leadership. So I know that business is happy. All the people involved in that business are happy. And then all the people in the supply chain leading to me gathering this. So the lorry drivers, the farmers, everybody is living in their highest. Everybody is being treated well. The ground is being treated properly. It's not being stripped of all of its goodness. And then, that's my dream. That is where I would love to go. Yeah. So everything, because we are all tied. Like I've said before, we are all connected. Like me buying something that negatively affects somebody else, that doesn't feel good.
But Janet, that would just change my whole world.
Yeah.
And then what do I do? Like, it's overwhelming to think of that.
I know, right?
But I have to say that I have been feeling quite guilty for a lot of years about my purchases, just the plastic. And when I know where the plastic is ending up,
right.
I try to be more, but I'm not very good at that. I let things go and I purchase when I need to run. So it's convenience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And convenient world
but the convenient world that has been developed is killing the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we need to embrace a world of inconvenience for a little while, because sooner or later, if enough people embrace proper conscious consumerism, then it all becomes easy again. It's only going to be really tricky for a little while before everybody catches up and goes, oh shit, we got to stop, enslaving these kids. Oh, it's not really very good.
Oh my gosh, sorry. Oh, we got to stop, enslaving these kids. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the reality of like a lot of the chocolate, know?
Yeah. I don't know. The conscious knowing where, like just thinking about the things that we consume on a daily basis, the things that we purchase,
And it's also not beating ourselves up if we, if we happen to slip or whatever, or we accidentally buy something from, I probably shouldn't name names, but a particular company that, begins with an N and ends in a lay. It's if we accident, because, these companies are like they've got their little fingers in so many pies. It's easy. It's really easy to accidentally buy something from them and not realize it. But you can't beat yourself up about that. That's where the self-compassion, self-kindness, self-love comes in. You just go, oh, okay, that happened. And you accept it without judgment. You don't beat yourself up about it. You just make a mental note and say, okay, I'll not do that again.
But Janet, I'm just one person. How can I affect change? If I make
because you are one person in a million people. And if all of those people got together, oh God, can you feel how big that is?
Yeah.
If every one person just said, oh yeah.
It just takes one person, right, to make change. And then that person sees me making that change, and they make a change, and then that person sees them, and so on and so on. It reminds me of the living wage and how I'm learning more about the living wage, because I think that, like you said at the beginning, we used to be able to support our families on the wage that we were given, and now it's impossible. There's no way you can on the wages that are the average wage. You need to have 2 or 3 jobs to sustain a family.
I want to flip it back to, as we move into the individual and we start remembering the employees that are not getting paid. I want to flip it back to the CEOs and remember that a CEO is also their own employee, and they're a power of one too. And I want to point there, because what I'm hearing you say, Janet, is there are many people watching this right now and will watch this, and we will self-identify with where we are on that whatever spectrum of earnings, spectrum of change making. And yet we are all an individual on that. And so if there are organizations, CEOs watching this right now, you're a one. Yeah. You are a one. We are all a one. And I want to thank you for this changes everything, that conversation of that, and where to begin on our path of conscious leadership, wherever we may be in our organization or in our lives. We're just going to close. We were down to our last 2 minutes on the clock. And not that we poof like, fairy godmothers, for pumpkins now. Can you imagine? For pumpkins, sorry, my brain, divergent brain. And you've just landed in a Gather for Her conversation where we walk beside change makers and learn from them in this time of paradigm shifting that the world is in. This is Powerhouse. We're a house of Indigenous and non-Indigenous leaders for global impact, leaders and change makers. And we offer multiple paths for individuals and organizations to walk on their change-making journey. Please come and check us out at powerhouse.com. And I thought maybe, Shar, I'd pass to you and we could just have a 3-word checkout or something to close this circle of us. Can I pass to you?
Sure. My checkout would be, not sure it's 3 words, but it would be: envision the legacy you're living, leading, and loving into. Be that.
Wonderful. Mine are 2 words: contemplative and thankful. Great conversation.
Mine is brave, bold, heart-led leadership. And you get the last word, Janet.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so thankful to be here. Community conversation. I think those are the, keep talking, keep the conversations moving, and embrace this, community and collaboration over competition. So, we're always in an abundance mindset rather than one of scarcity and fear.
Thank you. Next week, we'll be unpacking this conversation in a private wisdom circle. Private meaning it's just not on social, not private as in you can't come. So if anyone here is interested in being a part of that, You can, if you pop a comment here, I promise I'll respond and personally invite you as well. You can go to powerhouse.com to gather for her and register to be part of our audience, which will invite you into the Wisdom Circle, which happens on Zoom, where we can unpack all of these pieces and, as Gail Stepanek-Kaber would say, and embed it into how we live. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Shar. Thank you, Sharon, for this hour. And thank you to all of you on our LinkedIn Gather audience. We will see you again in 2 weeks here on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. Mwah.